A day after my husband and I got married, the manager of the Heritage Bistro called me saying, "We double-checked the camera feed. You need to see this in person. Come alone and don't say a word to your husband." Andrea "Andy" Vance opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was the white bedroom ceiling, washed in morning light. She stretched, smiled, and turned her head. Beside her, Marcus, her husband, was asleep, his arm flung out. Husband. The word still felt unfamiliar, but it brought a wave of warmth to her heart. Yesterday was their day, their wedding. Andy quietly slipped out from under the comforter, put on her robe, and walked into the kitchen. She turned on the kettle, took the leftover wedding cake out of the fridge, a 3-tiered confection with creamy roses that everyone had raved about, and sat down at the table. She broke off a piece of the sponge and closed her eyes. Last night played back in her mind like a movie reel. The restaurant, a cozy little family spot with about 20 tables, built around a charming courtyard. She and Marcus had spent ages choosing the location and settled on this one precisely because it felt intimate, unpretentious, and homey. There were only about 40 guests, just the closest family and friends, both sets of parents, a few close pals, Andy's co-workers from Maplewood Elementary, Marcus's buddies from Reliable Auto Repair, where he worked as a master mechanic, and of course, her bridesmaids, Simone, Tia, and Kendra. Andy remembered her father, Daryl, walking her down the aisle. He was in a sharp suit that he had clearly bought just for the day, and he held back tears the entire time. "You are so beautiful, baby girl," he whispered when they paused at the arch, which was decorated with white roses and greenery. Then came the moment she saw Marcus standing at the end of the aisle between the rows of chairs. He looked at her as if he were seeing her for the very first time. His eyes sparkled and a smile trembled on his lips. Tall, broad-shouldered, in a crisp navy suit, her prince. They had met 6 months ago, and it was funny to think about, at a bookstore downtown. Andy was looking for a textbook for her class, and he was standing in the automotive magazines section. She accidentally elbowed him reaching for a book on the top shelf. "Excuse me," she mumbled, blushing. "No worries," he laughed. "Let me grab that for you before you knock the whole stack down." He handed her the book, then asked, "Teacher, right? How did you know?" "By the look. My 3rd-grade teacher had the same strict but kind look." They started talking right there between the shelves. He walked her to her car, asked for her number, and called her that same evening. And then things took off. Dates, walks through the city at night, cooking dinners together. Marcus was attentive and caring. He always asked how her day went, and he'd bring her coffee at work when she had a tough week grading tests. After 1 month, he said, "I'm serious about this. I want you to be my wife." Andy laughed then. "We barely know each other." "Then we'll find out," he replied. "But I already know you're the one." It might have been too fast. Her mom, Brenda, was surprised. "Andy, are you sure? 6 months is so short." But Andy felt it too. She was sure. With Marcus, everything felt easy, peaceful, and secure. He didn't play games, drag his feet, or mess with her head. Everything was honest and grown up. He proposed 4 months later in a park by the fountain, with no one else around. It was a simple, modest ring with a small stone, but it was genuine. "Marry me. I promise to make you happy." Andy took a sip of tea and looked at the wedding band on her finger. Gold, thin, with an inscription inside. Andy plus Marcus always. He had the same one. They picked them out together at a jeweler, arguing, laughing, and trying on different styles. They ended up taking the simplest ones, with no stones or flourishes. "The main thing is that they're ours," Marcus had said. There was one moment from the wedding that Andy knew she would never forget, the couple's first dance. "You're Near," her favorite slow song was playing. Marcus wrapped his arms around her waist, pulled her close, and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for being in my life. I'm the happiest man alive." Andy caught her breath. She pressed against him harder, feeling his heartbeat against her. The guests smiled around them, some recording on their phones. But to the two of them, in that moment, it felt like they were the only people in the universe. Next was the dance with her father. Pop awkwardly shifted his weight from foot to foot. He'd never been a dancer. "Sorry, sweetheart, I keep stepping on your toes," he muttered. "It's okay, Pop. Everything is fine," Andy reassured him, hugging his shoulders. He was shorter than she was, and she had to lean down slightly. "You're a married woman now," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Take care of yourself. If anything happens, you know where your mother and I are. Always." Andy nodded, unable to speak. A lump tightened in her throat. It was a special moment, the last dance of the daddy's girl before she completely stepped into her new life. The guests celebrated late into the evening. There were games, toasts, and songs. Marcus held her hand under the table and occasionally kissed her temple. His friends told stories from the auto shop. Andy's colleagues reminisced about school moments, and Kendra was always nearby. Kendra was always so loud, bright, and noticeable. A tall blonde with long legs and a knack for wearing tight dresses. They had been friends since college, though Andy had honestly never felt a deep bond with her. Kendra was the type who loved being the center of attention, catching admiring glances and flirting with everyone. But she was an old friend, so Andy had to invite her to the wedding. Andy recalled how, at one point during the evening, Kendra hugged Marcus around the shoulders and let out a ringing laugh about something he had said. "You're such a good man for finding our Andy," she said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Take care of her. She's solid gold." Marcus smiled and nodded. At the time, Andy just assumed it was typical friendly horseplay. Kendra was always hugging everyone, kissing cheeks, and clinging to people's arms. It was just her personality. The apartment they were living in, the one they had walked into together last night after the wedding, was Andy's. It was a comfortable 2-bedroom condo on the 4th floor of a brick building in a great neighborhood, and she had inherited it from her grandmother 3 years ago. Grandma, who had worked as a bookkeeper all her life, was meticulous and frugal, saving every dime. She bought this apartment back in the 90s when prices were a joke, and before she passed, she signed it over to her only grandchild. "Make sure you have your own nest egg," Grandma had told her from the hospital bed. "Don't sell it, Andy. Keep it safe." Andy had never thought of selling it. She did some minor remodeling, put up light wallpaper, and changed the furniture in the living room and a new set in the kitchen. It felt cozy and welcoming. Marcus had commented the first time he visited, "It feels warm here, real." He rented a studio on the outskirts of the city, saying he was saving up for a place of his own, but it wasn't working out. A mechanic's salary wasn't exactly high. When they got married, the housing question solved itself. "Move in with me," Andy said. "Why pay rent when we have a place to live?" Marcus agreed instantly. Andy worked as a 3rd-grade teacher at Maplewood Elementary. This was her 2nd year teaching a class of 25 little wildcats whom she loved with all her heart. Her salary wasn't huge, but it was stable. Plus, with Grandma's condo, she didn't have to worry about rent or a mortgage. They could live comfortably without struggle. Andy had never yearned for luxury. Simple pleasures were enough for her: good books, Sunday strolls, and family dinners. The sound of footsteps behind her brought her back to reality. Marcus walked out of the bedroom, ruffled, wearing only his boxers and a tank top. He yawned, stretched, and scratched the back of his head. "Morning, wife," he said with a smirk, leaning in to kiss the top of her head. "Morning, husband," Andy replied, feeling a smile spread across her face. "Want some tea?" "Sure. Why are you up so early? We could have slept in." "Couldn't help it. Too many emotions." He sat across from her, grabbed a piece of cake right off the platter, and took a bite. "Last night was amazing, wasn't it?" he said, mouth full. All the guests left happy. Mr. Sterling from the restaurant even said ours was one of the liveliest weddings he's hosted. "Yeah, it was great," Andy agreed. "Everyone made an effort and had fun. Even Pop was dancing." "Your father is a good man, a stand-up guy. I'm glad he accepted me." "He accepted you immediately. Said you were reliable." Marcus smirked, finished his tea, and stood up. "All right, I'm going to hit the shower. Then I need to head out to the auto shop for a bit." The boss called and said a rush job came up. You don't mind? No, of course not. Go. He went into the bathroom, and Andy was left alone in the kitchen. Silence. Only the hum of the fridge and the distant city noise outside the window. She looked at her phone lying on the table. 5 minutes to 11. It was strange that no one had called yet. Usually, after events like this, friends and family started calling first thing in the morning to ask how things were and share impressions. Just then, the phone came to life. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Andy frowned and answered. Hello? Hello? Is this Miss Vance? A man's voice, slightly formal but polite, came through. Yes, this is she. Who is this? This is Mr. Sterling, the manager of the Heritage Bistro. We hosted your wedding yesterday. Oh, hello? Andy brightened. Thank you again. Everything was perfectly organized. You're welcome, but that's not why I'm calling. The manager's voice grew more serious, even strained. Ms. Vance, I have a very delicate issue. Yes? Andy tensed up. What happened? You see, we were reviewing the surveillance footage this morning. We had a small issue with the system the day before, so the technician came in to check everything, and... He stammered. Well, we found something on the footage. It relates to your event. Footage? Andy repeated, confused. What are you talking about? Ms. Vance, I can't discuss this over the phone. You need to see it in person. Believe me, I wouldn't bother you if it wasn't important. Andy's heart started pounding. Dozens of thoughts raced through her head. Did someone steal something, or did the guests get into a fight? No, the evening had been peaceful. Everyone left amicably. Okay, she slowly said. When can I come by? The sooner the better. I'll be here all day. And one more thing, Ms. Vance. He paused again. Please come alone. Don't tell your husband anything. This is important. Andy nearly jumped out of her seat. Why? What is on that video? Just come. You'll see for yourself. I'll wait for you in the office. Just trust me. You need to see this first. He said goodbye and hung up. Andy froze, the phone still in her hand, staring into space. Suddenly, a feeling of anxiety and dread washed over her. What a strange call. Why did she have to go alone? And most importantly, what was on that recording? The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Marcus had turned on the shower. Andy swallowed, her mouth suddenly dry. Maybe it was some kind of mistake? Maybe the manager had confused something? But his tone was serious, even distressed. People don't say things like that for no reason. She recalled last night, reviewing every moment in her memory. Everything was fine, right? Marcus was by her side. They danced, laughed, and accepted congratulations. Kendra sure had a few too many drinks and flirted with everyone, but that was normal behavior for her. Andy hadn't noticed anything odd. But wait. Andy frowned. There was a moment when she danced with her father for a long time, at least 10 minutes. Marcus had stepped away somewhere. She hadn't seen him then. Later he returned and said he had gone outside to take a work call. But at the time it hadn't seemed suspicious. Her head began to spin. Andy stood up, walked around the kitchen, and sat back down. I have to go. She had to see what was on that video, or she would lose her mind with worry. Marcus came out of the shower, cheerful, fresh, with wet hair. Hey, I'm going to get dressed quick and head over to the shop. I'll be back by lunch and we can eat together. Sounds good, Andy nodded, trying to keep her voice even. I think I'll go see Simone too. She left her purse here yesterday. It was a lie, but Andy couldn't think of another explanation. She couldn't tell him the truth. The restaurant manager called me and told me to urgently come look at some footage, but without you. That would sound insane. Okay. Marcus pecked her on the cheek and went to get dressed. 20 minutes later, he was gone. Andy was alone. She sat on the sofa, wrapping her arms around her knees. The anxiety grew with every passing minute. What if it was something bad? What if... No, she didn't want to even think about it. She got dressed quickly, jeans, a sweater, a jacket, grabbed her purse and keys, and left the condo. A terrible feeling settled in her stomach. Her hands shook as she pressed the elevator button. Everything inside her screamed, "Don't go, don't look, don't do it." but curiosity and fear pulled her forward at the same time. The restaurant was a 20-minute drive. Andy got behind the wheel of her old sedan, also part of her grandmother's inheritance, and set off. The road seemed endless. She turned on the radio, but the music irritated her, so she turned it off. The silence was deafening. When she pulled up to the Heritage Bistro, the parking lot was empty. The restaurant was only open in the evenings. It was usually closed during the day, but the door was slightly ajar. Andy went inside. The same room, the same tables, which had been decorated with flowers and ribbons yesterday. Now everything was cleared. Just bare tables stood there. Chairs were stacked upside down, ready for floor cleaning. "Ms. Vance." Mr. Sterling came out from behind the bar, a man in his 50s wearing glasses and a neat beard. He looked tired, as if he hadn't slept all night. "Hello," Andy said quietly. "I'm here. What did you want to show me?" He silently nodded toward the staff hallway. "Come on. You should sit down before you see it." Mr. Sterling led Andy down the narrow corridor past the kitchen and storage rooms. It smelled of cleaning products and something stale, probably from the supply closet. They reached a small office at the end of the hall. Inside, there was an old desk and 2 chairs. Last year's calendar hung on the wall. A laptop with a large screen sat on the desk. "Please, have a seat," the manager motioned to a chair. He remained standing, arms crossed over his chest. "Ms. Vance, I want to tell you right away. I feel awful about this. I thought about maybe not showing you, about forgetting it. But then I decided you deserve the truth. Better now than later, when it's worse." "You're scaring me," Andy whispered. Her hands instinctively curled into fists. "What is on the recording?" He sighed, pulled the laptop closer to her, and picked up the mouse. "We have surveillance cameras in the restaurant. There are 3 in the main dining room for safety, to keep an eye on guests and staff. But there's 1 more camera in the storage room where we keep inventory, dishes, and extra supplies. We put it in after some expensive equipment was stolen 2 years ago. The camera hangs in the corner, barely noticeable. Guests don't usually go in there, but last night..." He faltered. "Just watch for yourself." He clicked the mouse. A frame appeared on the screen. Black and white footage, slightly grainy, but clear enough. The angle was from above, showing the entire room. The storage room was a small space, maybe 10 feet square, filled with metal shelves stacked with boxes, piles of plates, and pots. Mops and buckets were in the far corner. Against the left wall was an old couch, presumably for staff breaks. The timestamp on the video read 9:43 p.m. Well, yesterday, during the wedding, Andy remembered the moment. It was around 10 p.m. when she was dancing with her father. A slow song. Pop held her hand, awkwardly stepping side to side. The door to the storage room opened on the screen. A woman walked in. Tall, long blonde hair down to her shoulders, a tight red dress. Andy recognized her instantly. Kendra, the bridesmaid. She glanced over her shoulder, as if checking if anyone was following, then stepped inside. A second later, a man appeared in the doorway. Broad shoulders, a dark suit, a familiar stride. Marcus. Andy froze. Her breath hitched. She stared at the screen without blinking, feeling everything inside her clench into a tight knot. On the video, Marcus closed the door behind him. Kendra turned toward him, said something. There was no sound yet. The camera recorded only video. He took a step closer. She placed her hands on his chest. He hugged her waist, and in the next second, they were kissing. Not a quick, accidental kiss. It was long, deep, and passionate. Kendra ran her fingers through his hair, pulling him closer. Marcus pressed her against the shelving. His hands slid down to her hips. They kissed like people who had wanted this for a long time, like lovers. Andy couldn't tear her eyes away from the screen. It was unreal. It couldn't be true. But the image didn't lie. Her husband, who had vowed his fidelity yesterday, who had kissed her in front of all their guests, who had whispered always to her, was now kissing another woman. And not just another woman, her friend, her bridesmaid. On the recording, they broke apart. Marcus said something, smirking. Kendra laughed, throwing her head back. Then they sat down side by side on the couch. Kendra pulled cigarettes out of a small clutch purse and handed one to him. They lit up and talked. Andy could only see their lips and gestures. "I'm going to turn on the sound now," Mr. Sterling said quietly. "The camera records audio too, but with a slight delay. The technician fixed the system to sync up the sound." He adjusted the volume knob. Voices came from the laptop speakers. They were indistinct at first, then clearer. "I thought I wasn't going to make it," Kendra said, inhaling on the cigarette. "Watching you dance with her and kiss her all night. Damn it, Mark, my nerves were shot." "Come on now," Marcus replied, putting his arm around her shoulder. "Just hang in there a little longer. Everything is going according to plan." "According to plan?" Kendra scoffed. "How do you think I felt? When she whispered to me, 'Thank you for standing by me, girlfriend,' I almost lost my lunch." "You didn't lose anything," he chuckled. "You're an actress. You played the part perfectly." "Yeah, maid of honor," Kendra grimaced. "Listen, how much longer do we have to play this comedy? When are you finally going to divorce her?" Andy felt the ground drop out from under her. She sat, fingers digging into the edge of the desk, unable to move. The words hit her like hammer blows. "Don't rush it," Marcus said on the screen. "We have to do this smart. First, she's going to sign the condo over to me. Then we wait 3 or 4 months so there are no suspicions, and then we can file for divorce. The condo stays mine, and you and I can live the life we wanted." "And what if she doesn't sign it over?" Kendra asked. "She will," Marcus said confidently. "I've already started working on her, telling her let's put everything in both our names so I feel like a full owner. She thinks it's about equality in the marriage. Dumb, trusting fool. Another week or two, and she'll run to the county clerk's office herself." Kendra laughed, a ringing, cynical sound. "Damn, you're a genius, seriously. It was simpler than you thought to trick a teacher, huh?" "Well, what about it?" Marcus shrugged. "She was lonely, didn't have a man, works at a school for peanuts, lives a boring life. Here I come, handsome, attentive, giving flowers, giving compliments. She just fell right into my hands." "True." Kendra stubbed out her cigarette on the floor. "I honestly thought you actually fell for her at first. When you told me you were marrying her, I freaked out." "Cut it out, Ken." Marcus pulled her closer and kissed her neck. "You know I only love you. Andy is just a way to solve our housing problem. She has a 2-bedroom condo downtown, no mortgage. We'll sell it, buy something decent for ourselves, and live off the rest." "Are you sure she won't suspect anything?" Kendra worried. "She won't. She's naive. She believes every word. Yesterday, I told her I want to have kids with her. She nearly cried with happiness." He smirked. "Kids? Seriously, having kids with her would be a nightmare. She's such a square." "Exactly," Kendra agreed. "I remember in college she was always so straight-laced. Homework on time, first to pass exams, never went to parties. Boring." "But she has a nice condo," Marcus concluded, "and that's the main thing." They were silent for a moment. Then Kendra turned to him, putting her hand on his knee. "Listen, after this, can we see each other normally, without all the hiding?" "Of course. As soon as the divorce is final, we'll move in together. Maybe even get married if you want." "I do," she smiled. "I've wanted to be your wife for a long time. Your real wife, not that idiot sitting out there in the hall, happy she got married." Marcus laughed and hugged her. They kissed again, long and eagerly. Andy watched the screen, and something inside her ripped apart. Tears streamed down her cheeks without her even noticing. All she heard, every word, every phrase, struck her deepest pain. It couldn't be her Marcus, but it was him, his voice, his laugh, his gestures, all real. On the footage, they sat for a little longer, then stood up. Kendra fixed her hair, looking into a small mirror from her purse. "I need to get back or Simone will start looking for me," she said. "Go on. I'll come out in a couple of minutes so we're not together. Okay?" Kendra kissed him goodbye one last time. "Love you. Love you too." She left. Marcus stayed alone, lit another cigarette, looked at his phone, then pulled out a comb, tidied himself up, adjusted his tie, and left the storage room. The door closed. The empty room remained on the screen. Mr. Sterling hit pause. The silence in the office was deafening. Andy sat motionless, staring at the screen. Tears dripped onto her hands, onto her jeans, but she didn't wipe them away. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't think. Inside, there was a black, cold emptiness. "I am so sorry," the manager said quietly. "I know this is horrible, but I thought you had to see this, or this man would keep deceiving you." Andy was silent. Words were stuck in her throat. She tried to process everything she had just heard and seen. Marcus didn't love her. He never did. Everything was a lie from the start. The bookstore, the dates, the proposal. It was all a performance. He played the role of a man in love just to get her condo. And Kendra, her friend, or rather the person she thought was her friend. They were laughing at her together, making plans to swindle and abandon her. "Ms. Vance," the manager called, "can I get you some water?" She slowly raised her eyes to him. His face was full of sympathy. He stood nearby, holding a glass of water he had poured. "Thank you," she rasped, taking the glass. She took a sip. The water was cold, burning her throat. "How long is that recording?" "About 7 minutes. I showed you everything." "Can you put it on a flash drive or my phone?" Mr. Sterling nodded. "Of course I have a flash drive. I'll copy it now." He inserted the flash drive into the laptop, opened the folder, and dragged the file over. Andy sat, staring blankly ahead. Thoughts slowly began to form in her head, chaotic and broken at first, then clearer. And with every second, something new grew inside her. Not just pain, not just hurt. Anger, a scorching, sharp desire to fight back, to get revenge. They thought she was a fool, a naive teacher who was easy to manipulate, who would believe any story of love, who would give up everything she had because she was too trusting. And then they would just discard her like a piece of trash and laugh at her. But they were wrong. Andy clenched her fists. The tears dried up. In their place, something cold and hard appeared. Resolve. "There you go," Mr. Sterling said, handing her the flash drive. "The recording is on it. If you need anything else, just ask. I'm ready to help." Andy took the flash drive, squeezing it in her palm. "Thank you," she said, looking him in the eye. "Thank you for showing me the truth." "You're welcome. I couldn't keep silent. I have a daughter myself, and if this happened to her, I'd want someone to tell her." Andy nodded, stood up. Her legs felt wobbly, but she forced herself to walk. She left the office, walked through the corridor, and through the dining room. Mr. Sterling escorted her to the door. "Be careful," he said goodbye, "and if anything happens, call me." "I will." She got into her car, closed the door, and just sat there, staring through the windshield. The flash drive lay on the passenger seat next to her purse, a small piece of plastic on which the entire truth, the entire lie, was recorded. Her entire life for the last 6 months was one big fake. Andy started the engine. She didn't know where to go. She didn't want to go home. Marcus was there. Or rather, a person with her husband's face, but a rotten foreign soul would be waiting there. She drove aimlessly through the city streets, past stores, bus stops, and parks. People walked on the sidewalks, laughing, talking on their phones. Normal life. And inside her, everything had collapsed. After half an hour, she stopped at a small square, turned off the engine, pulled out her phone, and looked at the screen. 2 missed calls from Marcus. "Where are you? I'm home already, waiting for you." Another message from Simone. "How's the newlywed life?" "Everything great." Andy locked the phone and put it back in her purse. She got out of the car and walked along the path. A cold wind tugged at her hair, but she didn't care. She reached a bench, sat down, and stared at the bare trees and the gray sky. She could have just left, packed her bags, moved in with her parents, filed for divorce, and forgotten this man like a bad dream. But something inside resisted. They wanted to humiliate her, deceive her, and use her. They wanted to steal her condo, her life, and after all that, just walk away, unpunished. No, that wouldn't happen. Andy took out her phone again, opened her contacts, found her father's number, and pressed call. "Andy? Pop's voice sounded anxious. "What's wrong? Why aren't you home?" "Pop." Her voice trembled, but she gathered herself. "I need your help. Can I come over right now?" "Of course, baby girl, come on over. Did something happen?" "I'll tell you when I get there." She hung up. Then she dialed another number. Simone's, her real friend, the one she'd known since high school. "Simone, it's me. Are you free right now? I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "Andy, what is it? Your voice sounds funny. Is everything okay?" "No, it's not okay. I'm going to my parents' place now. Can you meet me there?" "Sure, I'm heading out now." "Andy, what happened?" "You'll find out soon. Just be prepared. It's bad news." Andy put the phone in her pocket, stood up from the bench, and walked back to the car. The flash drive was still lying on the seat. She picked it up, clenching it in her hand. It was her leverage, her weapon, and she was going to use it. Her parents lived on the other side of the city, in an old 4-story walk-up where Andy had spent her whole childhood. A second-floor apartment with a balcony overlooking the courtyard. When she pulled up, her mother, Brenda, was already standing by the entrance, hugging herself. It was cool outside, and she had rushed out in her housecoat. "Andy, what happened?" Mom rushed to her as soon as Andy got out of the car. "Your father said you sounded upset. Did you and Marcus fight?" Andy hugged her mother, burying her face in her shoulder. And then, for the first time all day, she allowed herself to relax. The tears poured out again, but now they weren't tears of shock. They were tears of pain and hurt. She cried, and her mother stroked her back, whispering, "Shh, baby girl, shh. Everything will be all right." "Mom, it's so bad," Andy managed through sobs. "I don't know how to deal with this." "Come inside, you'll tell us." "Come on, sweetie." They went up to the apartment. Pop was sitting at the kitchen table. When he saw Andy, tear-stained and pale, he immediately stood up, frowning. "What did he do?" Pop asked grimly. "Did that Marcus of yours hurt you?" "Worse, Pop." Andy sat down on a chair, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "Much worse." The doorbell rang. Simone. Mom went to open it, and a minute later her friend walked into the kitchen, small, round-faced, with a short haircut. She worked as an accountant at a small firm, was married with 2 kids, and was the most reliable person Andy knew. "Andy, you're scaring me," Simone said, taking off her jacket. "What's wrong?" Andy took the flash drive out of her purse and placed it on the table. "This is a recording from the surveillance camera at the restaurant. All of you need to see this." Pop brought his laptop and turned it on. Andy inserted the flash drive and opened the file. The 4 of them sat around the table watching the screen. First came the video without sound. Marcus and Kendra entering the storage room and kissing. Mom gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Simone swore under her breath. Pop turned pale, clenching his fists. Then the sound came on, the conversation about the condo, the plan, the divorce, and how easy it was to trick the naive teacher. When the recording ended, the kitchen was silent. Mom was crying, burying her face in a tissue. Simone hugged Andy's shoulders, holding her tight. Pop sat with his jaw clenched, staring at the wall. His face was stone. "I'll kill him," Pop said quietly. "I'm going to find that son of a gun and kill him." "Pop, no." Andy put her hand on his shoulder. "Don't ruin your life over him. He's not worth it." "How dare he?" Pop hissed. "How dare he do that to you? I trusted him. I shook his hand at the wedding, called him my son-in-law." "I know, Pop." Simone stood up, paced the kitchen, and then spun around abruptly. "Andy, is he home yet, that Marcus?" "Yeah, he texted me that he got back from the shop." "And what are you going to do? Go back and tell him off?" Andy shook her head. "No. If I go back now and tell him, he'll deny it, or he'll admit it but beg, cry, and promise to change. I know men like that. They always have the right words. And She stopped, looking at the flash drive. "I want him to understand what it feels like to be humiliated. I want him to feel the same thing I felt today." Simone sat down next to her, taking her hand. "You want revenge?" "Yes." Andy looked her in the eye. "I do. They laughed at me, Simone. They planned to deceive me, take the condo, and kick me out. They thought I was an idiot who wouldn't figure anything out. I want them to regret it." Mom looked up, wiping her tears. "Andy, honey, I understand you're hurting, but revenge, is that right?" "Mom, he stole 6 months of my life. He stole my faith in people. He tried to steal my condo, the only thing I have left from Grandma. I can't just walk away and forget it." "She's right," Pop said. "Let him get what he deserves." Simone thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, if you've made up your mind, I'm with you. What did you come up with?" Andy straightened up, wiping away her last tears. The fire still burned inside her, but now it wasn't just the fire of pain, it was the fire of determination. "I want to gather all the guests, everyone who was at the wedding. I want to host a second reception, like people sometimes do, invite them to the same restaurant and show them this recording." Simone whistled. "Wow, are you serious?" "Absolutely. Let everyone see who he really is. Let everyone find out what kind of friend Kendra really is. Let them be ashamed in front of the people they betrayed." "But he'll be there too," Mom said. "Marcus, he's your husband. He'll come." "Exactly." Andy clenched her fists. "I want him to be there, to watch everything fall apart, to see the guests' faces when they find out the truth." Pop nodded approvingly. "That's a plan, a good plan. I'll help you. What do we need to do?" Andy thought, then began speaking, building the plan in her mind. "First, we need to talk to the restaurant, to Mr. Sterling, the manager. He already knows the whole situation. He'll help me. We need to rent the room for the night after tomorrow, Saturday. Say it's the wedding continuation." "What about the money?" Mom asked. "Renting the hall costs a lot. I have savings, and it won't be a full banquet. Just cover the tables, a light buffet. The main thing is to gather the people." Simone took out her phone and started writing things down. "What's next?" "Inviting the guests. Yes, we need to call everyone who was at the wedding. Tell them Marcus and I want to continue the celebration. Invite them again. Most of them will come. This doesn't happen often. Kendra will definitely come. She loves parties. Marcus won't say no either." "What if he suspects something?" Mom asked cautiously. "He won't? He's sure I don't know anything. To him, I'm still the same naive Andy who believes his every word." Simone chuckled. "Well, he's wrong to think that. He underestimated you." "Exactly." Andy felt her confidence strengthening inside her. "Now, the technical part. The restaurant needs to have a projector and a large screen. Mr. Sterling can help with that. I'll say I want to show the guests a video montage from the wedding. The photographer put together a highlight reel. No one will be surprised." "And when will you play the real recording?" Pop asked. "Right in the middle of the party." "Yes, when everyone is gathered, has eaten, and relaxed. I'll stand up, say a few words, and then play the video on the big screen for everyone to see, with the sound on." "Lord," Mom whispered, "it will be a shock for everyone." "Let it be," Andy said firmly. "Let everyone know the truth." Simone looked at her with respect. "You know, I always thought you were too soft, but now I see. When you need to be, you can be strong." Andy smiled wryly. "I'm just tired of being the person everyone thinks is the quiet one, the proper teacher who wouldn't hurt a fly. I was hurt, and I'm not going to be silent." They sat in the kitchen for another hour, discussing the details. Pop wrote everything down in a notepad. Simone made a guest list from memory. Mom brewed tea and served cookies, though no one really ate. Andy felt the plan taking shape, becoming real, and this gave her strength. When it got dark, she called the restaurant. Mr. Sterling answered on the third ring. "Ms. Vance, how are you? I've been thinking about you all day." "Thank you." Andy spoke calmly, confidently. "Mr. Sterling, I need your help. I want to rent your hall the day after tomorrow, Saturday evening. I'm throwing a second-day wedding reception." Saturday arrived faster than Andy expected. She spent 2 days at home, playing the role of the happy newlywed. She smiled at Marcus over breakfast, asked how his day was, and cooked dinner. He didn't notice anything, was the same as always, kissing her cheek, telling stories from work, making weekend plans. Andy looked at him and didn't recognize him, wondering how she hadn't seen it before, hadn't sensed the fake sincerity in his every word, his every gesture. On Friday night, he asked, "Listen, is this second reception definitely happening tomorrow? Maybe we should cancel it. I'm feeling kind of tired." Andy froze by the stove, stirring the soup. Her heart sank. Please, no. Please don't let him back out. "Mark, come on," she said, trying to sound lighthearted. "I've already invited everyone, and I paid for the restaurant. Everyone is looking forward to it. Let's not cancel. It's just one evening." He shrugged. "All right, one evening it is." Andy let out a sigh of relief. Everything was going according to plan. Saturday morning, she got up early. Marcus was still asleep, spread across his side of the bed. She dressed quietly, grabbed her purse, and left the condo. She drove to the restaurant. Mr. Sterling was already there, directing the servers who were setting the tables. "Good morning, Ms. Vance." He approached her, wiping his hands with a napkin. "Everything is ready. Tables for 40 people. The buffet menu as agreed. The projector is set up, and the screen, too." Andy looked toward the center of the hall. A large white screen stood on a tripod. Next to it, on a small table, was the projector. Wires trailed to an outlet in the corner. "Thank you." She handed him the flash drive. "Here is the recording. Can you check that everything works?" Mr. Sterling took the flash drive, inserted it into the projector, and turned it on. The image of the storage room appeared on the screen, black and white footage. The time, 9:43 p.m., the exact moment Marcus and Kendra were kissing. Andy turned away. Watching it again hurt, though not as much as the first time. The pain had dulled, giving way to cold determination. "It works," the manager said, turning off the projector. "When you nod at me, I'll hit play." He also checked the sound. "Loud and clear. Everyone will hear." "Perfect. I'll go to the screen around 8 o'clock tonight. Start it then." He nodded, handing the flash drive back to her. "Hang in there, Ms. Vance. You're doing the right thing." Andy returned home by lunchtime. Marcus was on the sofa, watching football. "Where were you?" he asked, without taking his eyes off the screen. "I ran to the grocery store, got food for the week." Lying came easier and easier. It was strange how quickly she learned to lie. Before, Andy had always told the truth, incapable of hiding or pretending. But when you are betrayed, when you find out your whole life is a lie, learning to lie is simple. By 6 o'clock, they started getting ready. Andy put on the same dress she wore to the wedding, a simple, white, knee-length dress. Marcus was surprised. "Why the same one? You could have worn something else." "I want everything to be like that night," she replied, fastening her earrings. "It's pretty, right?" He shrugged, pulling on his suit, the same navy blue one. As he tied his necktie in front of the mirror, Andy looked at him and thought, "One last time. This is the last time you will stand in my condo, in my life." They arrived at the restaurant at 10 minutes to 7. Guests were already starting to trickle in. Marcus's parents were standing by the entrance. Ms. Yvonne Hayes hugged Andy. "Andy, dear, you look beautiful. It's so nice that you planned a second reception. We're so happy." Andy smiled, nodded, and greeted everyone. Aunt Vera, colleagues from school, Marcus's friends. Everyone was cheerful and lively. The tables were loaded with food, cold appetizers, salads, and hot dishes. Servers poured wine and champagne. Simone was one of the first to arrive. She immediately walked over to Andy. "How are you doing?" she asked quietly. "I'm okay, holding up. Good girl, I'm with you." They hugged. Andy felt her hands trembling. Simone squeezed her palm tightly. "You got this. Don't be afraid." At 7:10, Kendra appeared, tall, in a tight black dress, high heels. Her hair was down, and her makeup was striking. She walked in, scanned the room, and waved to Andy. "Andy, hey! You're too much throwing a second day. Good for you." She came over and pecked her cheek. Andy smiled. "Glad you made it, Ken. Come in. Sit wherever you want." Kendra walked to a table and sat down next to Marcus. She whispered something to him. He laughed and patted her on the shoulder. Andy watched them from a distance, feeling her insides clench. How dare they? How dare they sit here smiling, pretending everything is fine? By 7:30, all the guests had arrived. 40 people at the tables, conversation, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Andy walked between the tables, chatting and accepting congratulations. Marcus sat in the center, telling another story from the auto shop. Everyone around him was laughing. He was in his element, the king of the evening. Just a little longer, just a little more. Andy walked over to Mr. Sterling, who was standing at the bar. "Ready?" "Ready." She nodded, took a deep breath. "It's time." Andy walked to the center of the hall, stood next to the screen, and raised her hand to get everyone's attention. Gradually, the conversations died down. The guests turned to her. "Dear friends," Andy began, trying to speak loudly and confidently, "thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for sharing our joy on the day Marcus and I got married. It was a special night." The guests nodded. Some raised their glasses. Marcus smiled, looking at her. "I want to show you something," Andy continued. "A video from our wedding." She paused for effect. Mr. Sterling, the restaurant manager, was reviewing the surveillance footage and found a moment that I think everyone needs to see. Marcus frowned. Kendra froze, a glass halfway to her lips. Silence descended upon the hall. Andy nodded to Mr. Sterling. He turned on the projector. The image of the storage room appeared on the large screen, black and white footage, the time, 9:43 p.m. The door opened on the screen. Kendra walked in, followed by Marcus. They closed the door, looked at each other, and kissed. A collective gasp went through the hall. Someone covered their mouth with a hand. Miss Yvonne Hayes, Marcus's mother, went pale. Andy's father clenched his fists, staring at the screen. Marcus jumped up from his chair. "Andy, what is this? Turn that off right now." But Andy stood motionless, looking at the screen. On the screen, Marcus and Kendra sat on the couch, smoking and talking. And then the sound came on. "I thought I wasn't going to make it, watching you dance with her and kiss her all night. Damn it, Mark, my nerves were shot." Kendra's voice rang through the entire hall. The guests froze, unable to believe their ears. "Come on now, just hang in there a little longer. Everything is going according to plan." Marcus's voice, clear and recognizable. "According to plan? And how do you think I felt when she whispered to me, 'Thank you for standing by me, girlfriend. I almost lost my lunch.'" Kendra on the screen laughed, and the sound echoed through the hall. The guests began to look at each other, whispering. Someone stood up to get a better view of the screen. "You didn't lose anything. You're an actress. You played the part perfectly." Marcus tried to get to the projector, but Simone and Andy's father blocked his path. "Stay put, son-in-law," Pop said in an icy voice. "Watch it until the end." "What the hell? This is a mistake. Turn it off." "Shut up and watch." Pop pushed him back toward the table. On the screen, Kendra asked, "How much longer do we have to play this comedy? When are you finally going to divorce her?" A dead silence fell over the room. Not a breath could be heard. Everyone looked at the screen, then at Marcus, then back at the screen. "Don't rush it. We have to do this smart. First, she's going to sign the condo over to me. Then we wait 3 or 4 months so there are no suspicions. And then we can file for divorce. The condo stays mine, and you and I can live the life we wanted." Ms. Yvonne Hayes screamed, covering her face with her hands. Mr. Leonard Hayes, Marcus's father, stood up, looking at his son as if he were seeing him for the first time. "Mark, what is this?" Ms. Hayes whispered. "What have you done?" Marcus stood in the middle of the hall, white as a sheet. His lips were moving, but no words came out. Kendra tried to stand up, grabbing her purse, but Simone stood in front of her. "Sit down," Simone said harshly. "You're going to watch the end." On the screen, the conversation continued. "And what if she doesn't sign it over?" "She will. I've already started working on her, telling her let's put everything in both our names so I feel like a full owner. She thinks it's about equality in the marriage. Dumb, trusting fool. Another week or two, and she'll run to the county clerk's office herself." Kendra on the screen laughed. "Damn, you're a genius, seriously. It was simpler than you thought to trick a teacher, huh?" Andy's school colleagues gasped. Ms. Davis, the vice principal, stood up, looking at Marcus with such hatred that he took a step back. "Well, what about it? She was lonely, didn't have a man, works at a school for peanuts, lives a boring life. Here I come, handsome, attentive, giving flowers, giving compliments. She just fell right into my hands." Guests started to stand. Someone swore out loud. Marcus's friends looked at him with disgust. One of them, Jamal, who worked with Marcus at the shop, shook his head. "You're messed up, man." On the screen, Marcus pulled Kendra closer, kissing her neck. "You know I only love you. Andy is just a way to solve our housing problem. She has a 2-bedroom condo downtown, no mortgage. We'll sell it, buy something decent for ourselves, and live off the rest." Mr. Leonard Hayes slowly walked over to his son. His face was red and his hands were shaking. You tricked this girl? Married her for an apartment?" Marcus opened his mouth, but his father didn't let him say a word. He swung his arm and slapped his son across the face. The sound of the slap cracked like a gunshot. Marcus staggered, clutching his cheek. "Pop, what? I don't know you," Mr. Hayes hissed. "You are not my son." Miss Yvonne Hayes cried, holding her head in her hands. Andy's mother walked over to her and hugged her. Both women stood watching the screen, where the recording was coming to an end. "I need to get back, or Simone will start looking for me. Go on. I'll come out in a couple of minutes so we're not together." "Okay. Love you." "Love you too." The final kiss. Kendra left. Marcus remained alone. The recording finished. The screen went blank. Andy stood next to the screen, looking at the hall. Everyone was looking at her. Some with sympathy, some with shock, some with admiration. She slowly raised her left hand, removed her wedding ring, and walked over to the table where Marcus was sitting. He stared at her, mouth open, unable to utter a single word. Andy placed the ring on the table in front of him, quietly, calmly. "Here's your ring, Mark. You are no longer my husband. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. You won't get the condo. You won't get anything, except disgrace." He tried to grab her hand. "Andy, wait, this isn't what you think. I can explain." She pulled her hand away as if from fire. "Don't you dare touch me. Don't you dare come near me. Get out of my condo today. If you haven't taken your things within an hour, I'll throw them in the trash. Andy, please." "Shut up!" She raised her voice. "You stole 6 months of my life. You played with me like a toy. You and her." Andy turned to Kendra. "You two laughed at me behind my back. You thought I was an idiot, that I wouldn't find out anything. But I found out, and now everyone knows who you really are." Kendra jumped up, grabbing her purse. "I'm not going to listen to this," she muttered through clenched teeth. "Oh, yes, you are." Simone stood in front of her. "If you want to leave, go. But everyone here now knows what kind of person you are. A friend who sleeps with someone else's husband, who plans to steal an apartment from her girlfriend. Go, Kendra, run. But remember, everyone will know about this. I'll make sure of it." Kendra turned pale, looking around at the guests. Everyone was looking at her with contempt. She spun around and ran out of the hall, her heels clicking. The door slammed behind her. Marcus was still standing by the table, bewildered and defeated. His mother walked up to him, tears in her eyes. "How could you, Mark? How could you do this to this girl?" He was silent. His father grabbed his shoulder, spinning him around. "Go pack your things. Get out of Andy's condo and never show your face to her again. Do you hear me?" "But, Pop, do you hear me?" Marcus nodded, hanging his head. Mr. Hayes pushed him away. "Get out now!" Marcus walked toward the exit. The guests parted as if he were contaminated. No one said a word to him. He left the hall and the door closed behind him. Andy stood in the middle of the room, feeling the tension of the last few days draining away, leaving behind only emptiness and exhaustion. Her father walked over and put his arm around her shoulders. "It's over, baby girl. It's done." She leaned into him, finally allowing herself to relax. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but now they were tears of relief. "I did it, Pop." You did good. I'm proud of you." Guests began to approach her one by one. Colleagues from school hugged her and offered words of support. Ms. Davis, the vice principal, took her hand. "Andy, you are a true hero. Not every woman would dare to do that. You showed everyone you are not to be messed with." Marcus's friends also came up, apologizing, saying they hadn't known he was like that. "We thought he was a decent guy," Jamal said. "If we had known he was planning something like that, we would have knocked his teeth out ourselves." Aunt Vera cried and hugged Andy. "My poor girl, how did you get through all this? But you did the right thing by not keeping silent. Let everyone know the truth." Ms. Yvonne Hayes approached last. Her face was tear-stained, her eyes red. "Andy, forgive me. Forgive me for my son. I didn't know he was capable of this. I'm so ashamed." Andy hugged her. "Ms. Hayes, it's not your fault. You're good people. It's just that your son, he chose the wrong path. I don't claim him anymore. He's dead to me." Andy nodded silently. Ms. Hayes hugged her once more and left with her husband. Gradually, the guests began to leave. Some lingered, talking and supporting Andy. Others left quietly, processing what they had seen. By 10 o'clock, only Andy, her parents, Simone, and Mr. Sterling remained in the hall. "Thank you," Andy said to the manager. "I couldn't have done this without you." "You're very welcome. I'm glad it ended this way. Justice was served." They left the restaurant. It was cold outside and the wind was blowing. Andy stopped by her car and looked up at the sky. Stars twinkled in the darkness, distant and indifferent. "Mom, Pop, let's go back to my place. We need to check if he took his things." "Of course, baby girl. Let's go." They arrived at the condo 20 minutes later. Andy went up to the 4th floor and opened the door. The foyer was quiet and dark. She turned on the light. Marcus's shoes were gone. In the bedroom, the closet was empty. His clothes were taken. His razor and toothbrush were missing from the bathroom. He was gone. Andy walked into the living room and sat on the sofa. Her parents sat beside her. Simone brought her tea. "How are you feeling?" Mom asked quietly. "I don't know," Andy answered honestly. "Better, I guess, but it still hurts." "It will pass," Pop said. "Time heals." Andy nodded. She believed him. Someday, it really would pass. But now, the pain was still fresh, sharp, like an open wound. She spent the weekend with her parents and Simone. They talked, remembered, laughed, and cried. On Monday, Andy went to work. The kids in her class greeted her with happy shouts, hugging her and showing her their drawings. She smiled at them, answered their questions, and taught her lessons. Life went on. On Wednesday, she filed for divorce. Her lawyer said the process would take a month, no more. Marcus did not contest it and signed all the paperwork without a fight. The condo remained Andy's. It had been titled in her name before the marriage, and Marcus had no legal right to it. A month passed, then 2, then 3. Autumn passed, then winter. Andy worked, saw friends, and visited her parents. In the evenings, she stayed home, reading books and watching movies. Slowly the pain, it didn't disappear completely. A scar remained. But life became easier. One day in March, she was sitting in the kitchen with her friends Simone and Tia from school. They were drinking tea, eating pie, and talking about everything under the sun. "You know, Andy," Simone said, "I have so much respect for what you did back then. Not every woman would dare to do that." "Come on," Andy smiled. "I just didn't want to be silent." "No, seriously. You showed everyone that you don't have to tolerate betrayal, that you have to fight for yourself." Tia nodded. "I agree. And you know, after that whole thing, I realized something myself. You can't trust blindly. You always have to keep your eyes open." Andy sipped her tea, looking out the window. Snow was falling outside the glass, white and fluffy. Spring hadn't arrived yet, but she could feel it in the air. Soon it would warm up, the ice would melt, and buds would bloom. A new life. "You know what the strangest part is?" Andy said quietly. "I'm grateful to him. What? Simone nearly choked on her tea. To whom? To Marcus. Yes. I'm grateful to him for showing me the truth, for teaching me not to be naive, for forcing me to become stronger. If it hadn't been for this, I would have stayed that quiet teacher who was afraid to stand up for herself. And now I know that I can handle anything. Simone hugged her. You're the best, Andy. You truly are. They sat in the kitchen, chatting and laughing. Snow fell outside the window. Andy felt free from the lies, from the betrayal, from the person who tried to use her. She was alone again, but now it didn't scare her. On the contrary, the solitude felt honest, clean, and ahead of her was a whole life. New meetings, new people, new possibilities. Maybe someday she would trust someone again, but now she would be more careful, wiser, and stronger. And that was the most important lesson she took away from the whole story. If you enjoyed my story, show it with a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. You'll see 2 new life stories on the screen. One of them will really speak to you. You can also support me with a small super thanks. Thanks, and see you soon.